Hey y'all, welcome to I Got a Story to Tell. I'm your host, Niambi Kiesha, holistic wellness practitioner, hoodoo spiritist, and Bronx native. And during our time together, I will share some of my musings on all things life, spirit, plants, and parenting. So get comfortable and let's dive right in. Hey y'all, and welcome to another episode of the I Got a Story to Tell podcast. I'm your host, Niambi Kiesha, and I am excited to be back here with you guys for another week. This is actually episode 20 of the podcast. And I have to say that I am excited and proud of myself for making it to episode 20. When I was listening to the reading for this week and chant on the Channy app, which I talked about it a few episodes. She was sharing about the fact that during this time, you may have the feeling that something that you've been creating or some creative endeavor may not be going the way you want it to go or may not be unfolding the way you envisioned it, and just the importance of pushing through, right? And so when I think about the creation of this podcast, it started simply as a thought at the end of 2024 that I said out loud to my sons, right? Oftentimes, when I have something in my head and in my heart, the way that I get things moving is I say it out loud, and I say it out loud to certain people. My sons being some of those people. Also, I have a really good girlfriend that I know if I say something out loud to her, it is going to come to pass, right? And I went from there. I created the intro. I believe I did the first episode May 5th. I started out with guests and really on a theme of change and what does change look like and what does community look like. Actually, it was community, not change. Um, and so, I was committed to then recording weekly. I changed the background a few different times. So I had to find my groove with that. And then over time, I was not recording weekly. Like life started lifing and things started thinging, right? And the weekly recording was not a viable option. But for me, that was part of the process, right? So due to the nature of this podcast, it's called the I Got a Story to Tell podcast. It's the story of my life, my experiences, my spiritual journey, and the intention is for me to share awarenesses, experiences, tips, tools, practices to help someone else along their journey. And so I've always shared that I will not come on and speak if I do not truly have something to say. And so part of this process for me was an acceptance that what I would share on this platform sometimes needs more than a week to come to pass, right? It is the way that my life moves and operates. I need to experience, process, integrate, and then that is how I receive language. That is how spirit gives me language that I can share from very esoteric or, otherworldly or spiritual experiences. So I had to have a level of acceptance that this is going to look different and that's okay. And as long as you stay true to your intention, to your purpose, as long as I come forth with integrity, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And so it was just very exciting for me to realize this is the 20th episode. And so in this episode, I am going to talk about some things that have unfolded over the past couple of weeks and how I navigated them and some nuggets that came about. Um, so I guess I'll start with, let's see. We're not going all the way back to Halloween because I recorded about that. Um, so I guess we could go back to around Thanksgiving time. We are just coming off of a full moon in Gemini, which was about a week ago. Um, and so in this time, I would say, yeah, let's go back to the Friday before Thanksgiving, because the Friday before Thanksgiving, I started my transition from my previous job, which I worked at a YMCA, a local YMCA here in Charlotte, where I live. And if you know me or if you don't, no, you don't have to know me, but if you know me, then you know that role for me was a very divine role. It was very much so a role that I was clear that I was called to, that there was a work for me to do that was tied very closely to my spiritual work, to my connection with my ancestors. When I started there, I had really I was at the beginning stages, I guess you could say, of my spiritual journey. And that role was a very special role to me. Now, here's the interesting thing. Even as I speak that out, my position prior to the McCory Family YMCA was with Mecklenburg County Public Health Department. And not even wow, the realization that I had is that role also was very ordered and very divine. The thing I would say about that role is I didn't realize the how lined up it was until after I was in it. I guess that is the difference that I would identify between the two roles. My role with the county was my first job after a career shift. I had been in my career for 20 plus years as a meeting and event planner. And I went back to school. And so I went back to school for youth, family, and community sciences. And so my role with the county in public health was aligned with this new career path that I was beginning. What I now know and I talk about regularly is the fact that I was placed in a program with professionals that was focused on parenting education because my structure, mindset, thought process about parenting needed to change, right? I've shared. I was walking through a divorce. I had lost my mom, and so I was transitioning from being a married mother of three to a mother of three in a single household. And that just required something completely different. I didn't see all of that when I took the role with the county, but it was equally as divinely ordered and orchestrated as my role at McCory. It's just that I was happy, I was satisfied in my role at the county, and I was not even looking. And the role with McCory, I feel like it found me, and I was able to align the journey that I was on with that role. So it was also the first time that I spoke in that manner in an interview. Like I said in the interview, the fact that this is, was the first African American YMCA in the segregated South, like I was able to speak to more than just my skill set. And that was something new for me. But all of that to say, spirit continues to guide my life, continues to move me forward. And the week before Thanksgiving, I began the transition out of McCrory to a new role. And so this new role is also absolutely aligned with where I am in life, absolutely aligned with where I see myself going, what I know my contribution is supposed to be professionally in this season. And I say it that way because I'm also learning that my contributions to humanity are in multiple areas. My contribution to humanity comes in the form of being a mother. My contribution to humanity comes in the form of being a holistic wellness practitioner. My contribution to humanity comes through my professional skill set. My contribution to humanity comes through, being a community member and being an advocate. So I'm also grateful that I'm learning that, I talk about the duality and I talk about the pieces of me and the fact that they all contribute differently. But all of that to say, that week before Thanksgiving really started something, right? So it was the beginning of my transition out of my role, which was very emotionally charged for me. I had grown to love my team, love my members, love my staff, love the community that I serve, love my coworkers, but it was time for me to continue forward. Simultaneously, I am now beginning to be in my new space, meet my new coworkers, meet my new team, wrap my mind around what this new role is and is going to be, right? So transition in and of itself can be difficult. And we have to be willing to give ourselves grace and acceptance and understanding around that, right? So that was happening. And then at the same time, I was walking through a dynamic in a interpersonal relationship that I was involved in, um, and just figuring out what my role was going to be in this dynamic and in this relationship, and what this other person's role was going to be in this dynamic in this relationship. And so it's interesting because I pulled a card this morning, Abraham Hicks card, and it read, "My life is about my relationships." And so it says, "You will never find yourself in a point in time when the object of relationships is not an active part of your now experience. For everything you perceive or notice or know is because of your relationship with something else. Without a comparative experience, you would be unable to perceive or focus any kind of understanding within yourself. Therefore, it is accurate to say that without relationships, you could not exist at all." And so I say all the time that when we are doing work, healing work, journey work, self work, whatever kind of work, the test is relationship. And it's not only intimate relationship, right? Even as I'm thinking about, I'm glad I read that card because I shared that it was emotional for me transitioning jobs because I had built relationships, right? Because I was intentional about relationships, because I'm going from one set of relationships in this work environment to another set of relationships in a different work environment. And so add on to that this interpersonal relationship that I was navigating, and there was some transition. This was a new dynamic. This was someone that had come into my life that, we had conversation, we hit it off, we seemed to have like similarities in certain areas, and it made sense for us to interact and engage with each other. Um, so there was that relationship dynamic. And then simultaneous to those two, a situation arose involving my oldest son. Again, relationship, right? And so now the situation with my oldest son called me into a dynamic of relationship with him, relationship with his father, my ex-husband, the relationship with my family, how would they support my relationship with my father, right? Father child relationship. You have to realize that when things happen in life, it impacts in so many different areas, right? And this card says it perfectly. Everything in our life is about relationship, and it what we're experiencing in current relationship or relationships, we're looking at in contrast either to previous relationships or previous versions of those relationships. So when I speak about the situation with my oldest son, that always is going to bring up where we are current state, where we were previously. Like, obviously, when something goes on with any of my children, it then brings back recall, it brings back memory, it brings back, what may have been my dreams, wishes, desires for their lives, right? It brings back the points in our relationships where there may have been breakdown, right? And so it's realizing that all of these things are thread together. Also, add in there, I walked through a dynamic. All of this was literally in a 2 week time frame. It was, I need to find a calendar, but it was from right before Thanksgiving till last week. So a 2 week time frame. But I also walked through a dynamic of somewhat reconciliation, again, with another interpersonal relationship dynamic where that relationship had become strained and then resurfaced. And I had to walk through thoughts, feelings, emotions, processing about that. I set the stage with all of this. I didn't know that where I was going with this was about relationships, but it absolutely is, because I then talk about the full moon in Gemini that we had last week, Thursday. And Gemini is an air sign. It is represented by the twins. It is about our mental space, our thoughts, our understandings. And so, what I realized for me, the space of this full moon in Gemini, what it came for me to do was to dredge up, trigger up thoughts and beliefs, both empowering and limiting, when it comes to my various relationship dynamics. And this full moon came to say, we're going to bring it all to the surface. And then you're going to sift through and you'll keep the pieces that work well, that serve you, that support you. But this is your last opportunity to release any remnants of anything limiting, any not enoughness, any, you know, in any judgmental, dark, unhelpful thought patterns that you have. We are about to bring you dynamics in almost every area of relationship in your life. I said, my children, my ex husband, potential partner, a previous friend, parental, not extended family, but my family, right? Other than my immediate family, like my children, but my family, my friends, my line sisters, every area, my work relationships, every area, my yoga family, every area came up for review under the energy of this full moon. And they came up for review in different ways. They came up for review in me navigating this transition of work on the heels of making the choice to host my family for Thanksgiving. That was a relationship thing. That was me saying it's important for us to be together, and I have the ability and wherewithal, and I'm going to express gratitude, and I'm going to do that in the midst of, right? That looked like me walking through a dynamic with my son, my oldest son, like I said, that was very trying and very challenging, which then required a different level of interaction with his dad, with which then required a different level of interaction with my dad. Um, and so it all came up. It all came up. And simultaneous to that, people reached out to me on various days. You were on my mind. You were on my heart. And this was early on when I had not communicated to anyone about the tussle that I was in. I use the word tussle. I just, that's the word that I like. But when I get into emotional situations or dynamics, it's a tussle, right? And I hadn't really communicated. So it's not that people were calling or responding to my outcry, but people showed up. They showed up. They called unexpectedly. The last day, the day that was the last day at my old job, my supervisor, one of my previous supervisors, who was instrumental in my interview process and securing and helping me secure that role or selecting me as the candidate, just happened to call me one morning. And she never calls me in the morning. And usually I want to say that she doesn't usually call without like texting first. But this morning, it was early in the morning. She called and I had just finished wallowing and trying to get myself together to get out the door. And I thought I had it all pulled together. So when I saw her name, my face lit up and I answered the phone and she's like, "Hey friend, how are you?" Sobbing. Do you hear me? Sobbing. And this is the power of relationships as well, right? Because there are going to be things that bring you to your knees. And the question is, do you have a soft place to land? Do you have some people that you've cultivated relationship with that if they call you and you feel yourself about to sob, you don't have to just jump off the phone? Because if she wasn't a safe place, I probably just wouldn't have answered. Or if I answered and didn't expect the tears to come, when they came, I would have been like, I gotta go, I gotta call you back. Or let's talk about the fact that probably the reason why the tears came, right? Because has she been somebody else? Has she not been a safe place? Has she not been a friend, a heart space? The tears probably wouldn't have come. But the sound of her voice, the care and concern that I know she has for me at all times, not only when I'm going through, signaled to my nervous system, you could let it go here. And so many of us don't have a place, a tribe, a person, a practice, a meditation, a yoga class that signals to our nervous system it's safe to let it go here. And that's what I want to share today. I say often, have wartime conversations in peacetime. Build up your foundation. Get your tools together. Learn your practices. Meditate and practice yoga when you are well, when you are happy, when you are not vulnerable, when you are at your strongest. So that when your central nervous system needs a place to exhale, I just talked about waiting to exhale with my line sisters a couple of days ago. And it's very real to need a place, a space, a person, a practice, a class, a room in your house where you can literally exhale and feel the weight and the tension and the pressure come off of your body. If you don't have that and you hear my voice, make it your business to begin building that. It's not something that gets built overnight, but you start with one practice. You start by setting the timer on your phone for 2 minutes, go on YouTube and look up meditation music and just sit for 2 minutes. Everybody has 2 minutes. I don't care who you are, how busy you are, what your family dynamic is, what your work dynamic is, what your job is. Everybody has 2 minutes. And you will be surprised how much your body needs a release. So I share about my supervisor that called me, and I lost it that morning, right? But then I had another girlfriend, sister friend, fellow yogi. Now the full moon was on Thursday. She calls me 10 o'clock at night on Wednesday. This how you know she my person and she know I'm her person or one of her people and she's one of my people, because I'm sure it was nothing in her mind that was like, oh, let me not call Niambi, it might be too late. I feel like it was easily 10 o'clock. Maybe it wasn't that late, but it was late. And she said, go look at La Luna. That's the moon. Go look at the moon. It's a halo around it. Now with full moons, they appear full at like by the night before. They may not reach their max capacity until whatever their date and time is, but it appears full. And what did I do? Jumped my behind right up out the bed, ran outside, looking up at the sky, was able to see the stars and constellations. I have never been able to actually see constellations. She told me where Orion's belt was, and I was able to see it with my naked eye. And I stood out there with my head up in the clouds and my girlfriend on the phone. And I said to her, God is so merciful because I needed this. And again, started sobbing, shared with her what was going on, then downloaded an app that allowed me to put my phone up to the sky and see all the constellations and see where things are and where the signs are. But she knew what astrology is for me. She knew that I am a moon child who keeps my head up in the skies. She knew that it would be perfectly fine to call me at any time of night and tell me to run outside in 32 degrees and look up at the sky. She knew that. And she didn't find that out when I was in the midst of these difficult transitions. She didn't find that out when I was down and out and needed somebody to call. We've built rapport, we've built connection, we've built relationship, we've built community, we've built connection. I know I said that already, but we've built connection. And that connection allowed her spirit to know that my spirit needed something. And so she called. And I was beyond grateful because God is so merciful. The other thing that I will share is as I was walking through all of this, I was having these supportive interactions that allowed me to get the support I needed. Never once with any of them asking me, well, what happened? Well, what's going on? Right? They were pouring in while I was going through processing and integrating. I'll never forget when my mom was sick. My mom was sick. My mom had ovarian cancer. And I remember telling one of my line sisters, like, I was getting very upset because I felt like my mother was not sharing with me what was going on. And she shared with me a Bible verse. I don't know which one, where, or whatever, but Google it if you want to look it up. Essentially, it said, God help my unbelief. Help me in my unbelief. Something to that extent. Where she was essentially saying that maybe my mother chose not to speak about her condition because talking, I told somebody this the other day, talking is actually the least effective form of communication because you're trying to give language to some things that might not have language, especially when it comes to spiritual things, when it comes to faith, when it comes to belief. Sometimes you don't have word for that. And so, what I do know that my mother was doing regularly was praying, listening to her worship music. What I know now as I walk my own spiritual walk, and as I was going through this dynamic that I was going through over these past 2 weeks, I did not have the wherewithal to have to give verbal language to explain to somebody what was going on, because then what I know from the law of attraction is I would have been given energy to the end of the dynamic that I did not desire. Because if I'm explaining to you every hard thing that has happened, every sad thing that is happening, every frustrating thing that is happening, every egregious thing that has happened, then I am verbalizing and giving language to the very things that I don't want. And so, what my girlfriend was saying is, like, my mother very well may be in a space where she's choosing not to verbalize the condition or what the doctor said or what the prognosis is or so forth and so on, because she is holding her energy within herself, focusing on what God said. And we have to learn how to do that as well. And if you have solid community, you'll be able to. You'll be able to say, listen, this is what happened, but I don't have capacity to keep talking about it, but pray with me and check on me. I didn't even have to say check on me. That's what I'm saying. Spirit sent the checkers. Spirit sent the checkers. Because I built relationship and rapport and dynamic and connection and support with the checkers when I wasn't in distress. And it's important to have that balance, because when we are going through really intense shifts, in order to get the lesson, get the message, get the ascension, get the awareness, get the elevated consciousness, get whatever it is that you want to get from it, and not just get the muck, mire, headache, frustration, and all of that, we have to be able to sit, process, and integrate. So, going back to this full moon, part of what was happening as I was going through all of these different dynamics of relationship is limiting beliefs were trying to pop in and come back left and right. And I had the opportunity to, on a regular basis, daily, dismiss, call it what it is, face it, say that's not so, pray, move slowly, eat nourishing food, drink water, sleep a little bit more. Last weekend, my son was supposed to be home, but ended up having an engagement that took him out of here from Friday night until Sunday. Right? Spirit delivered quiet, silence, fewer responsibilities for me to be able to just do, to just move through. And I've come to be grateful for those times where I get up at my own pace, ain't no alarm set, don't nobody need me to do anything for them. I eat, I try to nourish myself, I stretch, I go for walks, I open the windows, I drink water, I pray, I do ritual, I take showers, I take baths. Though that is my integration process. And it's being able to have the awareness. Like, I was aware that I was going through all last week. And then when the weekend came and I was like, oh, nobody's here. I could have, you know, went running out, being outside, going to socialize. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying I had to be in tune enough to know and to identify when I'm being gifted the time, space, silence, community support that I need to process and integrate. And so this full moon, going back to my girlfriend that called me on Wednesday, we did all of that, looked up in the sky. And then on Thursday, the actual full moon, the sky was cloud covered and I couldn't see the moon at all. But spirit got me outside the night before because I'm a moon child. And so it speaks to my energy, it speaks to the cycles, it speaks to the changes. It does something for me. So spirit sent my girlfriend the day before to call me and tell me, get up and go outside. So when people are asking me, I always try and come back to how do I sum all of this up? When you're asking me, what does it look like? What does the work look like? What does the awarenesses look like? How do you do it? This is how you do it. It's an acknowledgement, an expression of gratitude and appreciation for all of the supports and supportive nature, individuals, people, experiences that come into your life. It's slowing down enough to see them and identify them, right? For me to see and identify that my son having this sleepover with his friend that allowed him to be gone for 2 days, which freed up what I needed to do responsibly and allowed me space to process through in my body, cry, wail, eat, sleep. I express gratitude for that now. And that's the other piece. It's an acknowledgement after you go through. I shared the other day, there's a quote that I have up on my wall from Abraham Hicks that says, I really like some of the difficult things that happen to me that make me experience the value of love. It does not mean that when I was doubled over or hysterical on the phone with my girlfriend, that's where I wanted to be. No, I actually sometimes get frustrated because I feel like, come on, I've done the work. Like, how many times I got to get doubled over? So, in the moment, no, I don't like it. But as I sit here before you now, the reason why I had the wherewithal, energy, and the glow to bring you this episode is because I am aware that what I walked through last week could not have been anything less than miracle making manifestation. That the rockets of desire that I shot out last week, that I never want to be in this space again, that I never want to experience this again, I never want to experience this again. I do want to experience more of this. I absolutely want more of this. Like the ends of the totem pole, right? When they say the pendulum swings, that when you go to the extremes, I put spirit, God, the universe, my team on notice. I don't want this. I want the exact opposite of it. So I have no choice but to feel electric inside about what is coming to me because it's magnificent. It is magnificent. And I'm certain of that. I feel it in my body. I feel it in my bones. My pendulum is so already so far from where I was this time last week. And that's the glory. That's the gratitude. That's the appreciation. And that's the life experience. It's really all we're here to experience. All we're here to do is have experiences, feel them in our body, navigate them with different people, walk them out, talk about them, use them for the upliftment and betterment of others. There's nothing else to do here. This journey and this experience is not about things. And don't get me wrong, I like things. I'm a Taurus. I like my things. I like the things that I like. Different people like different things. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, I don't want any things. No, I do. I enjoy the things. I enjoy good food. I enjoy good wine. I enjoy hugs and snuggles from my children. I enjoy finding a good find that makes me look how I want to look in, at the when I go shopping for clothes. I enjoy getting my hair done. But those are not the totality. Those are not the core reasons for this physical experience that my spirit has chosen to go on. Those are just like icing on a cake. The core reason why my spirit chose to come and do this was because it's an amazing opportunity to live in this physical body and to feel, experience, do, process, integrate, have, be all that we get to do. So I hope that you guys found, heard, feel, receive a nugget that you can apply and that you can hold on to as you go forward. Um, as we are winding down this 2025, this year of nine, this year of completion, right? Preparing for 2026, which is going to be a 1 year, which the number one is about new beginnings and excitement and opportunities, right? And so I hope that you all are looking at what it is that you desire to wrap up, letting go anything that no longer serves you, anything that is not for your best and highest good, facing it, right? When those limiting beliefs try to show up, calling them what they are in the moment, not allowing them to take root and derail you in any way. And then prepare for the newness of the new year on the calendar year, as we know, right? But then we'll enter 2026 and we'll still be in this winter season of hibernation. I share all the time, um, the astrological calendar begins in March with Aries. But even as we have a Gregorian calendar and our like calendar year with 2026, I do still feel that the end of 2025 is an opportunity for reflection, and the beginning of 2026 is the opportunity to just begin thinking about what are these new things, what is it that I'm looking for, creating, whether you're a vision board person or just someone that likes to script or write or do whatever you want to do, still in that hibernation feeling, right? Still in that inward space, but using that time to think about, reflect on, write down, prepare what it is that you want to take action on in Aries season, which is the beginning of the astrological calendar. Okay? So, y'all have an amazing rest of your day, your week, whenever you're hearing this. And I will be back for another episode of the I Got a Story to Tell podcast. All right. Have a good one.